You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell.
And co-host Keelan Harvey.
Your local mortgage experts right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, October 27th show. We are here to help you build a strong financial blueprint, 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that we have on the show today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, Troy Thiel with the Thiel Team at Windermere, the shifting market, and how do we upshift? Troy, I'm so excited to have you in studio. It's been way too long. I know you're just a crazy, crazy busy guy, and it's just an honor to have you here. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And a little bit about Troy. With over 25 years of experience as a leader in the real estate industry, as a broker, consultant, CEO, and an active participant in the industry's organizations, Troy knows what it takes to help the Thiel Team's clients reach their real estate goals. He has worked in 3 major marketplaces, Seattle Eastside, Madison, Wisconsin, and Chicago North Shore, and has been award-winning sales producer and CEO in each one. Troy is a longtime industry and community leader in many areas, including government affairs regarding real estate, economic development, affordable and appropriate housing development, sustainable business organizations, bicycle, and pedestrian advocacy, and more. Troy, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So I'm pretty excited about this, Troy, because it's been a theme. We're talking about the market. It was going 9,000 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden we pumped the brakes, and now everybody's kind of unsure. We're wondering what the heck is going on and why did it happen and where are we going? So it's just a lot about kind of the unknowns of the market. So where are we and why, in your opinion?
We are at an inflection point. We were the hottest market of any major city, obviously, in the country. For 23 months in a row, we were the fastest growing in terms of the median price. Mm-hmm. And with that said, you know, every coin has 2 sides to it, right? Mm-hmm. So for those 23 months, we were the fastest becoming unaffordable, quite frankly. Yeah. And, you know, that's always a challenge. As a person who moved here intentionally because of the economic, amazing, dynamic energy that Seattle has, mm-hmm. there's obvious reasons why our story was so great for so long. That's a record of any major city in the country. And so we have the dynamic economy, you know, it's techies, it's Boeing, it's, you know, there's so many fantastic jobs, right? Fantastic nature, fantastic mm-hmm. neighborhoods. I'm still blown away as I'm driving down 405 and there's Mount Rainier. I mean, I'm an Illinois guy. I mean, like a hill, you know, a mountain is an overpass over a highway. You know, I run out of breath as I ride my bike up to it. So it's an amazing story here, and the market has. I'm a simple guy, so I use 3 words, and the biggest one is affordability. Mm-hmm. Hands down, that is our major issue and why our market has changed. There's some other influences that we can talk about, but affordability is the dominant one. And when that change happens, there are 2 other words: confidence. People start to lose confidence in which direction the market's going, and then there's perception, and perception may be wrong. You know, someone may believe that the market's doing this, and the reality is the facts might be something different, but the perception will get them to move or not move, as it were. Yeah. And so, you know, for example, right now, we sold 27% fewer properties September over September, mm-hmm. year over year in this marketplace. And there are some amazing values there. And you as lenders know interest rates aren't going to go down. Yeah, no. Right? And there's some, we're seeing price reductions. We're seeing sellers bringing their properties on for 5, 10, 15% less than they would have in mm-hmm. March or April, where there would have been multiple offers for us to deal with. And so one of the things about the fourth quarter is it's usually the best time to be a buyer, because mm-hmm. interest rates tend to be at the lowest for the year. Mm-hmm. And with other factors happening, it looks like interest rates are going to continue to rise, and you have fewer competitive buyers. Yes. And so it's a great time to buy. So what's happening in Seattle is a little bit of a perception, and people are sitting on their hands a little bit. and they're not activating the market. I list a condo today in downtown Kirkland for $1 million. It'll sell in a week. If it's in good condition.
Yeah.
There are other markets that are similar. If you price it right, there's demand. So we have reached a point where the market has dramatically shifted in terms of activity per house. And that was it was bound to happen. We rose so fast in a 6-year period from 2012 to 2018. All good things must come to an end, and what goes up must come down a little.
Of course, yeah. So, Troy, with all of the experience that you've had in the other markets that you have been in what's working, and I know that you just have a tremendous voice for here in our market to try to help with the affordability issue. Can you talk a little bit about where you moved from and what was happening in their markets compared to what we're doing wrong here?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into some detail in some of that. But.
Understood, yeah. Initially, we moved here directly from Madison, Wisconsin in 2015. And Madison is a great city. My wife and I had always lived in the Midwest. And in 2012, our daughter Anna started at Seattle U. And the way I relate it is 10 seconds after being at the campus visit in April of 12, I knew she was going to school there. 10 seconds later, I knew we were going to move here because we are big city people, and we were Chicago originally. And while we loved Madison, it was limited in experience and that dynamic snap that Seattle and this area has. I mean, we can be in Vancouver, BC in less than 3 hours, depending on the border crossing, Portland, everywhere in between, out on the San Juans. And so we wanted to be here because I also recognized, I started studying the market, is that Seattle was going to boom. With job growth will lead real estate and housing and development, right? And we are the pinnacle of job growth in the last 6 years. The challenge was, as I started to do my research, is we had some state laws that were really blocking, for want of a better term, providing the right type of housing where an urban growing market in a big city like Seattle has or is, and the area, from being produced and being produced at affordable price points. In 2012, when I visited, I could have bought a nice house for $500,000. That house is now close to $1 million. And that's gonna leave a mark, if you will, because only a certain percentage of our population can afford that. And so we did not backfill, if you will, that $500,000 with quality new inventory options. And so the challenge with that is primarily the condo law and how they're handled in the state.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that, Troy? The law possibly, or more or less, some of these possible solutions.
Yeah, there's a lot of solutions to the condominium law. The current law was written in response to essentially no really good consumer protection laws back in the day. In the first kind of chapter, if you will, of the Seattle condominium market, where there was not significant protections for the consumer, and there were some horror stories out there with buildings that were converted or built that 2, 3, 4 years after the association and the individual consumers take over, the sheeting of the building starts falling off, and there's it's a 40-unit building with a $4 million capital improvement need.
Yeah.
Ouch, right? Yeah. At the same time, people tend to forget it. Back in that time frame, homes were fairly affordable. While condos are a preferred method of living for usually in urban markets the size of ours of 30 or 40% of the population, like in New York or LA or San Diego or Chicago or Boston, in Seattle, affordable homes were still aplenty. We were talking about where you live, right?
Yeah,
West Seattle was super affordable 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and so there's all these, these properties that went up in the second, like Bellevue Towers and all these other condos that came online after the Condo Liability Act, which essentially overprotected the consumer and essentially was a shakedown for lawsuits, for litigation. And litigation is not an efficient, timely, or inexpensive way to fix defects or issues. And it's proven that it's essentially blocked out huge swaths of new inventory at affordable price points. In Vancouver, BC, for example, they'll bring on 20,000 condo units a year.
Wow.
And we were bringing on like an average of 250 a year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right? And so that then compresses the demand into that single-family home space, and then it drives up the prices. Unfortunately, it's driven up the prices so significantly that it's driven it beyond the means of many of our households. And we all here in the studio, we make our living by helping people achieve their real estate goals and investments and the American dream. And there are so many valid reasons why home ownership is a key fundamental need for a family's
strong economy,
right, and a strong economy. And our challenge is that we've not provided a diversity of price points and types. You know, in some cases, it's zoning or the Growth Management Act or some other things. But in the condo situation, that's a big one.
So, Troy, let's talk about condo conversion. So, you know, I want to make sure that our listeners know how much you're putting into this effort. And, you know, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But, and one of the solutions that you talk about is condo conversion. So share a little bit more on that.
It's interesting, you know, with the downturn, and you may have noticed this too, Amy, the reality is that there's a downturn in the rental market, right?
Yes.
And there's a tremendous amount of inventory in the pipeline being built. And we're seeing actually job growth slow down. The condo conversion law here is so deleterious. I just used a big word.
Yeah, say that again.
Deleterious.
Like it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to try to slip that into every conversation today. But it's so bad. Another word, that it inhibits condo conversions from being done, and in a couple of various reasons. The problem with that is good quality condo conversions come in at a much more affordable price point to the marketplace.
Yes.
New construction in the Seattle market is extremely expensive. Carry time is 3 to 4 years. It takes it takes to get through mandated governmental approvals. Labor costs are way up for lots of reasons. Material costs are way up. Tariffs have hurt that recently. Time is money. And so the challenge of thinking we can solve our affordability through new construction, that just ain't happening. So condo conversions provide a really great way to convert a quality building, make sure there are protections for the incoming consumers and actually the existing tenants. If I convert a building in downtown Redmond, I'll guarantee you 40% of the buyers already live in there.
Yeah.
And they get access to home ownership, and developers would love that with all the pre-sales. So there's ways to build in the law, and this is what happens in other states. But unfortunately, in Washington State, we went to the too far extreme. We had no protection, and now we've got too much protection. So the consumer essentially, with that shift, has no protection in terms of housing choice and availability, and we are where we're at.
Yes. You know, Troy, it's such great information. We're going to come back to this. Coming up next, we're going to stick around right here with Troy Thiel, the Thiel Team at Windermere. We're talking about the shifting market and how do we upshift. Coming up after this break on 1150 AM KKNW.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell.
And your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
A little bit delayed there, our local mortgage experts.
I was so excited about Troy. I know,
I'm so excited about our conversation.
Yeah.
We're right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, October 27th show. We bring into studio each week the best experts in our local market on everything money. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to answer any questions or connect you with amazing guests that we have on studio today. You can call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or go online at themoneyhour.com. And still in studio, we have Troy Thiel of the Thiel Team at Windermere. The shifting market and how do we upshift?
So to go back to it, Troy, we were talking about conversion from, a multifamily to condominiums, how that'd be cheaper, and some of the challenges that we have with that. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening to fix it, or what can we do to fix it?
Well, there's a lot of great conversations occurring. The Washington Association of Realtors, I was on the state board, and I'm on the Seattle King County Association of Realtors Government Affairs Committee. We created a condo liability group to address this about a year and a half ago. And there's been some meetings about that. There's conversations about legislation. In Olympia in 2018, there were a few things floated in the House, and they did not get through that would address some of the issues. I think we learned from that. And what was interesting is the state legislators that I know and I witnessed in speeches, they thought they had a great 2018 Olympia, but when they came back, their constituents' number one issue was affordable housing, undoubtedly. And it's number one on their lips and on their minds. And so there's what I love about where we're at is we have the realtors industry, the builders industry, the nonprofit housing developer industry groups, because they want to do condos too that are affordable.
Yeah.
We have housing advocates. Basically everyone in their quote unquote silos is talking about this. I want to bring all the silos together, and there's ways to do that. There's good stuff happening. There's conversations happening at very high levels that are bringing legislation on. They're addressing some of the issues, defining what a defect is, having the developers required them to have a warranty for the common element and the limited common element, and giving them the right to cure rather than going straight to litigation, which is extremely expensive and onerous. And most developers put in their pro forma 20 to 30% more. That's how much more they charge per unit.
Wow.
The cost for the liability insurance alone, which has limits that pretty much are tapped out. The insurance agencies or the companies have left the building, if you will. That adds to the cost and makes housing, this kind of delivery, even more unaffordable. So fixing that by giving them the right to cure it. And instead of going to litigation, having a mediation arbitration. If the developer were to say, you know what, I don't think that's a defect, I'm not going to fix that, have a mediator arbitration. That's one of the legislative ideas that's been floated. There's other important stuff that has been floated and is involved in the conversation. One of them is that the developer also would maybe contribute a percentage. That's what the other states I've been active in, to the Capital Reserve Fund. So the consumer knows that, hey, I know 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the road, if a hot water tank breaks for the association, there's money in the kitty, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, a third-party inspection at the beginning of the certificate of occupancy for the project that says, hey, we've had a qualified inspector that says this building is in excellent condition, right?
Yeah.
Right from the get-go. So if I'm a consumer, I feel protected because it's protected. There's a warranty. The developer has a right to cure. And then another important thing that is part of the current law that is looking like it's strongly going to get through is that it absolves from liability to be sued the board of directors who have to make the decision to sue the developer. Because so they're on the hook currently. They can get sued personally too.
Wow.
If they don't join the lawsuit. And so this is litigation is the rights of the trial attorneys has sort of impeded everybody else's and this is the challenge of our time is we need to provide more housing at different price points and more types of housing that Seattle and Washington State needs.
So, Troy, great conversation. Does that equal action for us in the near future?
Gosh, we hope, right?
I know. It's a tough one.
It is. The silos are all talking about it. I was at the Master Builders Association Housing Summit yesterday, the action plan for housing.
Yeah, you're getting around everywhere. How much time do you really have? There's 24 hours in a day, right?
Yeah, thank goodness for coffee. And I'm taking naps now, too, a little more often. Good. But the Master Builders had a fantastic event yesterday, and I'm just going to read a quote. This is where they're at. As our region continues to face a significant housing crisis, we believe bold solutions are needed to help meet this vision. It is vital that we close the gap between housing supply and demand and work together to make housing attainable for all. And that is, if I were to read the Realtors last conference, it would be very similar.
Yeah.
I spoke to the Washington Mortgage Bankers Board of Directors at their dinner last week. I ran a national panel in Las Vegas at a conference about this last week. Next week, I'm speaking to the Washington Mortgage Banker Investment Group. Everybody is on this, and state legislators are on this. I don't know where the governor is, but it'll be nice to get him involved with this. So we have gotten good feedback so far. One of the state legislators who was sort of blocking the legislation last year has gotten out of the way and is now part of the solution, which is fantastic. I think we have to remember that yes, we have a crisis. We have, quote, an inflection point of where our market's at. This crisis is our opportunity to fix it. Yeah. And there's a lot of great people. This is the innovation center of technology and the economy. Let's do that for housing, right? So if I were to make a challenge, I always like to say start with the end in mind. And I would like us to be the fastest growing in home ownership of any major metropolitan area, because we are way under average when it comes to home ownership.
That's a good target.
When you have that big target, then you can backfill. What's it going to look like to get there?
Troy, you don't have a crystal ball, but I'd be curious to get your opinion. What do you think it's going to look like? Like, what's our future here in Seattle? And I mean, there's the ideal scenario, but what do you think is going to happen if you had to make a prediction? Not to just put you on the spot like that or anything.
Sure can.
Wow. Yeah. First, my hair will come back. Secondly, this is a real crisis. Between now and the end of Olympia session in April, these silos we're talking about coming together, the Washington mortgage bankers, the realtors, the builders, the nonprofit housing developers. And what's great to see is the legislators, when I'm witnessing these events and these people talking, they're on the ball and they're researching it.
That's really neat to hear.
Yeah, because this is the year for the big fix. This is not the year to go low. I think there was, I have to be honest, in my opinion, an incremental approach to the fix the last couple years. Looking at what's happened with our market, we've lost 27% unit sales, and the median price was down 10% from 6 months before.
Yeah.
Crisis. And we haven't even talked about rental housing. But as goes home sales, goes rentals, right? And so this is all one of the reasons the chambers are also involved in business organizations. So this is an issue for employment and consumers. I mean, HQ2, Amazon, that was in my opinion, a very large canary in a coal mine that we sort of ignored. That, your largest employers decided to grow the same size somewhere else.
Well, and I think that, too, is a big start of the consumer confidence or the perception, as you'd mentioned before. The confidence and the perception go hand to hand. And, just having these things happening and these conversations going on, really started that.
Yeah, so I'm
concerned.
Agreed. And I think that sometimes it takes crisis and pain, and now the pain is being felt in pretty much every area. Even apartment owners and developers, they're seeing a reduced demand for their product. At the same time, they've got a lot of product about ready to hit the road. So let's give them an option. By the way, single family home and subdivision builders are running out of land, and if you want to do the hour 45 commute each way, that's really hurting people. Our roads can't take that. As we expand. And so let's figure out how to be far more efficient with the stuff we already have built, conversions, and upzoning where appropriate. Hala in Seattle, and there's other examples throughout the suburbs, transit-oriented development. There's a nice laundry list of other ways we can fix it beyond the condo law.
Yeah,
well,
sorry.
You go ahead, Keelan.
I was just going to say, you had me interested. I mean, the viaduct is done, which is crazy. And like January, there's a talk of all this transit and things going on. And, we're talking about development, our geography here. How do you think that's going to play a part in all of this as well? It's interesting. I'm a Chicago guy, and, when I needed to get downtown, I just jumped a train, right? Yeah. I'm a Kirkland guy now. When I need to get downtown Seattle, I just jump the bus. Or I ride my bike, or I'll occasionally drive, but driving is like 10 or 15%. I would encourage people just to try it. I got to the airport last week by a bus and a train transfer, and I worked the entire time I was riding. So, we're a big city, and half of us are from somewhere else, and half of us live that urban existence. So we need to sort of understand that group is happening, and then we need to pay attention to what's happening already with transit-oriented development. The train line to the east side gets announced, and in advance, I believe a lot of Redmond was already upsizing, knowing that was coming. And then you look at the Springs District in Bellevue on the east side of 405. Humongous project going on right near the train station. Those types of things we're discussing in Kirkland at our bus rapid transit locations going up 10 stories over air rights.
Wow. Really?
Wow. Yeah, over the 405, right? Wow. Because we can provide housing in an area that's not going to impair anybody's views, and it'll be affordable, or it can be affordable if it's handled well.
That's some out-of-the-box solutions.
Well, yeah. I guess I have a kid in Tokyo, 38 million people, and every time I go there, I'm like, whoa, we can do this. And I'm a Chicago guy, and and every 4 blocks where the L stops, there's some nice multifamilies, and there's mixed density in between the zones. And Seattle, I think, recognized this, and the council did with Hala. Hala got shut down a little bit and slowed down. There's going to be a hearing. But I don't think the upzoning, look at what's happening in the U district, all that upzoning, that's going to make the U. I mean, you're a grad, you know how cool a place that is, and it's just going to get better. Yeah. And people always have a choice. If you don't want to live in a dense place, you can move somewhere else.
Exactly.
You're just going to have to sit in traffic a little bit.
So, Troy, let's talk about the Growth Management Act and, how long it's been since there's been any changes and how that might be a solution as well to assist with affordable housing and the inventory.
Yeah, GMA is definitely in the conversation. The Ruckelshaus Institute out of the Political Science Group department at Washington State is going around the state and working with local electeds and city managers and stuff and people that are involved and the citizenry on kind of strategic thoughts on how to fix it. And then I've heard many state legislators and senators discussing that the GMA we can strategically and surgically improve it. I mean, that's a plan that's been that was done by planners back in the 80s and processed in 1990. Things have changed. Its expectations of growth were a quarter of what we really saw. Yeah. So, let's not pay allegiance to a plan that today's realities don't actually reflect.
Exactly.
Let's adapt. That's important in planning to the realities of the ground. Otherwise, I do have some concern if we don't fix these things in 2019 in Olympia and we don't make some really strong movements to this big holistic fix like the Master Builders one and so many others. That confidence and that perception, once that starts the downslide,
it goes down quick.
It goes down quick, and it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
And I think this is our time to fix it. We need to put a full court press in the next 6 months to not only strengthen what's being discussed today, but look and see what are we missing. And the conversion is, quite frankly, we're missing conversions in the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's critical and key to providing far more affordable housing units.
It sounds like we've just been kind of behind the times, really. Like, it's just been, we're just not keeping up with some of the other places in the country. I mean, my family's from Europe, and just to see some of the, the developments in bigger cities and stuff, we're just hold on to this kind of, rural.
We don't want to change.
We don't want to change. It's like a rural kind of feel type thing. So what advice would you give to, like, our listeners on how they can get involved, or what should they do, or what can we do to help?
Yeah, again, if you're a part of any, this is an issue for municipalities. This is an issue for business associations. This is an issue for your legislators. This is an issue for your community. We're all paying higher and higher taxes. What are our car tabs to handle all this growth? I mean,
ridiculous.
Multiply our car tabs times 4 million people. Ouch, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like this isn't affecting us, and we need to play a part of it with our policy leaders. And you mentioned Europe. There's some concepts of other types of zoning that we don't allow for, like smaller mixed use. 2 to 4 units are beautiful things.
Yeah.
If done well. You talk about Europe. I mean, I would love to build a 2 or 3 or 4 flat, but all of Seattle and almost all of the major suburbs downzone those types of zone areas to single family only. Vancouver, which has a maybe even worse problem than us with affordability, just literally upzoned every single family zone property to 2 to 4 units if you want it.
Interesting.
Except for
Really?
historic, because they recognize that.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that. I think 5-10% of those people are going to pick to do that at some point. They also have something called the Heritage Home movement, which allows for some really cool stuff. So we can learn from others. I think those that are listening need to understand that there's a risk to all of us if we don't fix it.
Yes.
I mean, median prices have come down 10%. We were talking about this before the show.
Yep.
I mean, the equity that people have essentially, quote unquote, lost. Now, they almost doubled in a 6-year period. But
exactly. If you put that in perspective, it's not as bad. But
it's the big but. Let's not backslide into affordability.
Exactly.
Let's supply side it, because the supply side also has the aspect of putting more money potentially into government coffers to help the homeless issues. Through increased unit sales, that means more REIT tax. If a condo building or an apartment building turns to condos, the actual tax increment that the municipalities make is 40 to 50% more than it's a single tax bill to one apartment owner.
Yeah.
Think about that. Plus, it reduces the housing cost, which gives people more economic capacity to make the economy grow even more.
Yeah. So, Troy, we've got 1 minute to wrap up the show here. And just, one tip that you have for our buyers out there that are listening, especially to the conversation that we've had today.
Mm-hmm. One tip.
One tip in 60 seconds, Troy.
In 60 seconds. Contact your city council, your mayor, your state legislators that you know or you don't know, and say, affordable housing is the biggest issue of our community, and what are you doing about it? We'd love to help. Consider fixing the condo law, adding conversions, addressing the ADU, accessory dwelling unit challenges that are currently in the legislation, making them more liberal. Also, multifamily tax credits. So give developers incentives to do that. That's another issue that's out there. We've got to realize that we're a big city, and we can. Let's play like the other big cities do, and how they've provided housing across the spectrum of type and price points, and we can learn from them.
Love that. I love that one tip all combined into many. Troy, all the amazing things that you're doing out there for consumers' rights and affordability, and just really taking the wealth of knowledge that you have in other cities and what you've been in and see that's working. Just a shout out to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and the talks are happening, but we got to get to action.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when the silos come together to help push it even more, and we speak, there's strength in numbers together. Mm-hmm. We're in a good place. We're not there yet. Let's make the next 6 months stick.
Love it.
Exciting.
And this is Tina Mitchell signing off for the day.
And your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
Your mortgage experts, local mortgage experts, and we'll appreciate you listening to the show today. We'll be here next week, same time, same place, right here at 1150 AM, KKNW. Have a great weekend.